What is up, basketball fans? Welcome to the NBA Outlet. I'm your host, Nick Fay. With me, as always, Kory Waldron. Kory, how we doing?
Beginning week 3, the NBA season rolls on.
I'm surprised you're here. I was worried about load management.
Yeah, normally you can't do back-to-back days of podcasting, but I made it. That's the way I'm alive.
We appreciate that. Hopefully your vocal cords can make it through the show. But you can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Dash Radio, and YouTube. But Kory, let's talk about another suspension in the NBA. John Collins suspended 25 games for the Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah, so it looks like the NBA is cracking down on PED use. So this is the third guy we've seen suspended, Wilson Chandler from your Brooklyn Nets. And then we just had DeAndre Ayton from the Phoenix Suns. And the latest now is John Collins. Of course, we get the pre-written, typed out apology that every athlete gives when they get caught. And of course, we get at the end, unbeknownst to me, there was PEDs in this, or HGH. I had no idea. I was taking it for this, this, and this. Without my knowledge, I was given this drug. The amount of athletes that have mistakenly and not unintentionally been given HGH is ridiculous. A lot of bad luck out there for athletes. But it's unfortunate, especially for a Hawks team, as we've mentioned on this pod a lot. Has been thriving early on this year. Obviously, Trae Young missed a couple games with an ankle injury. Him coming back and then losing John Collins for a big stretch of games. Not great for a Hawks team that, at least at this point in time, had some playoff hope.
Yeah, it really is. And John Collins was, off to a good start and a potential all-star season for him. He's just such a big force for them. Obviously, their best big. Losing him for 25 games is a really big chunk of the season, especially because I don't think they have great depth at that spot.
No, it's going to be, funny enough, my guy, Jabari Parker, will likely see a boost in minutes because of this suspension. He's been pretty good for them so far off the bench, but as we know, Jabari Parker isn't a fantastic or an impact defender by any means. So if he can start making an impact on that end of the floor, we'll have to see. But I'm okay with my guy Parker getting a slightly bigger role, even though I think for the Hawks, it's not a great case scenario for them to start winning over the course of these next 20 to 25 games.
Yeah, it is really interesting. And like you mentioned, Jabari Parker's been off to a good start, specifically playing with Trae Young, getting him a lot of easy dunks in transition or just wide open ones. But it's going to be like, who can step up? Because the big drop off from John Collins to the next guy is probably like between Jabari Parker and Alex Len. And that's a big drop off. It's not like we're talking about, another solid player. Like these guys both have big question marks in their game.
Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting to see what Lloyd Pierce does with the rotations as they try and make up for John Collins, who obviously was really starting to flourish this year, I felt, for the Hawks.
The one positive for the Hawks, though, too, is they have a lot of young guys. They have to go small, so maybe just running a center out there and some of the lanky wings they have, they can kind of get away with playing them a little bit more. Do you think Trae can carry the load without John Collins? Like last night, he was amazing. We saw him cook LaMarcus Aldridge.
Yeah, I mean, Trae Young's a special talent, right? This guy's almost must watch, at any given point. I thought they played a really good game the other night against the Philadelphia 76ers as well. So, I mean, I think this team is going to remain competitive. I don't know if I can expect, Trae and this Hawks team to, compete against the upper teams in the West and Eastern Conference. So I think, we're going to see some losses over this stretch, probably more losses than wins if I had to guess. But I think Trae will at least make all of these games interesting and close.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have the ball in his hands a lot. It's going to be up to other guys to really step up. And his numbers, through 5 games, because obviously he missed one, 27 points, 48% from the field, 50% from 3, over 8 assists and 4 rebounds. Like, there's just monster numbers and a really efficient shooting ones.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned the confidence he was playing with early on this season, shimmying from the logo and popping threes. He's playing with an extreme amount of confidence. He finally has, since the All-Star weekend last year, has really just emerged as a really solidified scorer in this league, a fantastic passer. The confidence he has is incredible. And the fact of the matter is, like, that one freakish injury he had, of course, his ankle, unbeknownst to me, till you told me, it was his first ever injury, which is why it looked as bad as it did, and it was only a sprain. And obviously, it's not going to be, I don't think, an issue going forward.
Yeah, I mean, he looked really good last night. It's going to be interesting to see what he could do with his supporting cast, but the development in his game we've seen so far, you mentioned the confidence, but I think his ability to read defenses is really taking the next step, and that's going to happen with experience. So I'm really intrigued to see what he can do. But moving on to another team, and this is a team that's really surprised everybody, and that's the Phoenix Suns sitting at 5-2, and they just ruined the Sixers' undefeated season. Obviously, it wasn't going to last forever, but they handed them their first loss.
They handed them their first loss, and Devin Booker had 40 points on like 12 of 19 shooting, like 40 points on 19 shots. I think was the final. I mean, that's insane.
Against good defenders, too.
Against good defenders as well. Ricky Rubio having 19 and 10. Aaron Baines, who would have thunk it? I mean, the guy was a bench player for the Celtics. Obviously, was a big part of their success the last couple of years, and now with the DeAndre Ayton suspension, gets bigger minutes and performs just as well. Did a little bit of everything. I know Suns Twitter was joking that he's like Steve Nash, but in a center's body because he's had some really good assist numbers. But no, this Suns team has been really good, and I think Sargic, even though his shooting numbers are he's been solid. I keep saying this when we talk about the Suns. Why did the Wizards give it to Kelly Oubre Jr. again? Like, I really just need to know, because now from having like a really bad supporting cast for years in Phoenix, Devin Booker has some nice vets around him in Baines and Rubio. And then you have some really nice young talent in the fact that DeAndre Ayton will be back eventually. Kelly Oubre Jr. has shown that he's, a solid 15-6 guy. And then, of course, like Bridges coming off the bench. I think you still have Tyler Johnson. It's just a really competent team. And, of course, that starts with also having finally what looks to be a stable head coach and front office situation becoming between James Jones and now head coach Monty Williams. They're just finally taking steps in the right direction. And now we're starting to see that Devin Booker is much more than just a scorer. He can be an impactful player on a winning team. And, it's been a huge credit to what this franchise has been able to do the last, 6 months.
Yeah, it really has been huge, and it's allowed Devin Booker to shine. He was putting up similar numbers in the past, but they weren't resulting in winning, and a lot of people said, are they just empty stats? Well, it really looks like Devin Booker's always been good. The supporting cast has just been bad. You mentioned guys like Aaron Baines, Ricky Rubio really stepping up. Who's been the biggest surprise for you in terms of the new additions?
I mean, honestly, probably Ricky Rubio. Obviously being a Pacers fan, and the Ricky Rubio rumors were high. They were flying for most of the summer. I didn't want Ricky Rubio because I don't like his shooting ability. But when it comes to what the Phoenix Suns desperately lacked, that was a true point guard. Someone who could get the offense going, someone who could facilitate for others, someone who could take some of the load off of what was already on Devin Booker's shoulders, which was facilitate for everybody else, score at a high click, and basically do it all. Ricky Rubio has taken some of that load off Devin Booker's shoulders, as you said, kind of freed him up to be the best version of himself. And now a guy like Rubio, who's just fantastic at getting guys involved, that offense is just clicking more. The defense, and I think when you're starting to score more points in a more organized fashion, you're starting to be more competitive, that only bolsters your effort on defense. And Rubio's a solid defender, as is his point guard. So I think the impact Ricky Rubio has had just overall on both sides of the floor is probably what's caught my eye the most and been the most important thing for this team so far this season.
His high basketball IQ is kind of spread across the team, just allowing guys to be better and just making better basketball plays out there. And just to be different, I'll go with Aaron Baines, who's shooting 48% from three on 4 attempts a game. I think that's a big surprise. We saw him do it a little bit in Boston. I know he did a little bit in the FIBA games, but to do it in the regular season, and you mentioned the assist numbers, almost 3.6 assists a game, 6 rebounds. We know his defensive presence. I think he's been really big. And the fact DeAndre Ayton is suspended, your backup center comes in and plays great for you is huge. Which guy do you think is more likely to keep it up the entire season?
Between who? Baines and Rubio?
Yeah.
Probably Rubio. I think at least, for the fact of the matter is one's always been a starter. One generally comes off the bench. So I think I'd be more confident in Ricky Rubio keeping this up. But Baines has been really good, so I'm not going to by any means discredit what he's done so far this season.
Yeah, I agree. I think the fact that Ayton's going to come back, it's going to disrupt his minutes, where Rubio is the starting point guard in this team. They're going to need him to be good if they're going to have any type of success. But do you expect the Suns to keep this up as a team? Like, are they going to be a 500 or above 500 team this season?
You're looking at teams across, in particular, like the Pacific Division, for example. I think they're better than the Warriors and the Kings, which were two teams that I had in the playoff picture. So I think if those two teams are out of the playoff picture, which I think the Warriors for sure are, the Kings are questionable. I think the Suns are going to be right around 500. Not guaranteeing that they're going to be a playoff team, but as of right now, I think they've put themselves somewhere between the 7 and 10 seed range for me in the Western Conference.
Yeah, I think they've been really impressive to start. I expect them to maintain competitiveness and be around a 500 team the entire year. I don't think they'll make a jump to the playoffs. I just think, some guys are kind of playing over their head right now. If they do, big credit to Monty Williams, like you mentioned, taking over as head coach and really changing the mentality of this team. I'd be super impressed if they're able to land a playoff spot.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot of effort. But I mean,
and a lot of jump from the young guys. Like that's the one thing that I think if you're a Suns fan, where you're like, okay, maybe we're not going to keep up this level of play, but other guys on this team can get better. Mikal Bridges can get better. DeAndre Ayton is going to come back. Like there are young pieces that could take another step.
Definitely.
So it'll be interesting with that. But quick discount code for you guys for FOCO USA. OTG NBA 10 will save you 10% off 2 NBA items. But Kory, I hinted at this earlier. Load management. What are your thoughts on Kawhi taking off tonight's game against the Milwaukee Bucks? Obviously, we're recording this before tip-off.
It's I'm not a big fan of load management. I'm personally on the side though of lowering the amount of games in the season. I think 82 is too many, just because also we wait so long for the playoffs. It's more enjoyable basketball. So I'd rather just cut down the season so you don't have to really see guys in load management issues. But I get it. A guy like Kawhi Leonard who had some leg problems already in the past, you're playing for the playoffs end of the day. So you see these back to back from the schedule, and you pick and choose what games you want to play, basically. He's sitting out tonight against the Bucks on ESPN, but he'll be playing tomorrow on TNT against the Blazers. The people making the primetime TV argument, you're going to see him the next night. So, I'm okay with that. But again, fans show up and pay big money to see these athletes. Giannis Antetokounmpo versus Kawhi Leonard is a game that a lot of people probably bought tickets because they want to see that.
It was one of our games of the week.
It was literally one of our games of the week. So that factor, it's not good. It's not a good look. It takes away from the fan experience. I get not wanting to play back-to-backs, but I don't know where you really go from this, but I don't like it. I don't think it's good for the game. The fact of the matter is it's going to be on primetime TV because they expected to see these two guys on TV, and that hurts the league. I wonder what the ratings for this game looks like tonight, come tomorrow, knowing that Kawhi's not going to play.
I think it's honestly an L for the schedule maker. You already know Kawhi, and he's probably going to load management this season. Why would you schedule the Clippers back-to-back?
Well, he said he wasn't.
But, you knew that he was.
Right.
Everyone knew he was. He's going to take games off. It just makes sense. I don't really care as much about load management. It sucks for the fans. It sucks for primetime TV. But, hey, if you want to rest, go ahead and rest, especially if it's in a back-to-back. And Kawhi just went to the finals. And we saw with teams that go consistently to the finals, it takes a toll on your body. Obviously, Kawhi missed the previous season. But talking about the Warriors and what's happened over there, Kevin Durant torn Achilles, Klay Thompson torn ACL, Curry just broke his hand, Draymond's dealing with issues. So, I'm really not opposed to players taking games off if they want to, especially on a back-to-back. There really is no need for back-to-backs. If they just drop that and then players are still taking nights off, okay, now I understand being upset. But you're playing, intense basketball on a back-to-back basis, and you're traveling in between. It's going to take a toll on your body. And if, like you mentioned, the goal is to win a championship, these regular season games in the big picture really don't matter.
Exactly. No. Honestly, there shouldn't be back-to-back. The fact of the matter is, too, to start the season, for example, the Detroit Pistons, they had a back-to-back to start the year. We can do better on the schedule to get rid of these scenarios where players have to kind of pick and choose the games. And also, I know it would cost money and players would probably lose out. But I think the games would matter more. You'd see a better quality of basketball if we did cut down the season by maybe 10 games.
Yeah, if you went to 70, you removed all back-to-backs, and then maybe you had another mini break somewhere along the line so guys could kind of feel fresh.
Yeah, or even I know Bill Simmons had mentioned this, the thought of cutting down the season even more by 20, but having a big mid-season tournament and then a final of the year tournament. I'm not sure what the
I would absolutely love that. We talked about this once on the NBA Outlet back when Parth was a co-host on here, and we essentially took all 32 teams and did a bracket, and it's just a one-game elimination. I think that'd be awesome, and it'd be great for teams that aren't going to make the playoffs or they don't have championship aspirations. It's a one-game showdown. It'll be like March Madness where, hey, like you could just get lucky and pop off in this game. And you could do it in like December, and then you still have a long enough break until the finals.
Yeah, I think that'd be something fun. I mean, I don't know what you're playing for.
It'd
But
have to be like either for money or donation or just like maybe like, I don't know, home court for whatever conference wins or
right, something quirky. But maybe it's like money and the home court is involved.
like charity stuff. Like we know like sometimes they do like, hey, you win like 5 million to charity of the team's choice, or who knows, just something
Right.
for some type of bonus.
Yeah, so I mean, I still think that would be the route I would probably take to try and eliminate load management. But when
You
there's an
could cut the
82
season
game,
down to like 50 games if you do that, and that should be awesome.
I know. I mean that's another thing. I mean that's almost like every sport though, not to get like too much off topic, but like the MLB season being 164 games long, like do you really need 164 or 162 games, excuse me. Do you really need 162 games to decide who are like the best teams in the league?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, like you guys could do 100. Like who said
Yeah, exactly. And like
162?
basketball, like 82 is good. Like I mean, I love every night just about of basketball. Like, you and me both. We're diehards. We're watching every night. But again, like we could cut off and like save ourselves, a month or two of our life if we just went to like 60 games and got this stuff sped up because we pretty much know who the teams are through 50 games of a year.
Yeah, and it would give, the players
Less
and the
injuries
team,
too.
yeah, they'd have a longer break to recover in the summertime where you see a lot of guys are only able to take off like a week or two because they're training in the next month.
Right. That's another thing. These guys don't really get off seasons.
Because if you take off the summer, you're probably going to come back not as good, or someone else is
Exactly.
going to take a jump over you.
The only way you can get an off season is if you don't make the playoffs.
Yeah.
You can take a month off.
And even then, like, you should be hungry to get even better to make the playoffs. So now it's like, okay, I don't even know what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. We finally saw Andrew Wiggins take the opposite approach and start putting in some effort. Now that he's cooking. No, he's good now, so it's all right. It's a compliment. It's backhanded, but it's a compliment.
Yeah, that was like a real backhand hit both cheeks. But I know you don't really want to talk about this team, but are you surprised the Charlotte Hornets are 4-3?
You wanted to do it. This is payback, isn't it? It's a little.
Devontae Graham.
Devontae Graham, nightmares, man. Every night somebody's got to give me nightmares.
But TJ Warren had a monster game too. Yesterday was full of crazy games. You had friggin' Devontae Graham, TJ Warren, then Gordon Hayward didn't miss a shot in the first half. Like it was also the Cavs defense was terrible, but he looks really confident. But back to the Hornets.
Last night was fun. Like you had the Lakers big, down by 20 at halftime comeback as well. There was a lot of fun going on last night across the association.
The funny thing is, the only game we expected to be good, the game of the week, was Denver versus Miami, and that was the worst game by far.
Right. It was the blowout. Denver completely manhandled Miami. Makes you kind of think of how good the West is compared to the East, right? Because we're talking about Miami possibly being the third best team in the East, matched up against arguably a top four, top three team in the West, and they got manhandled.
Yeah, I think we could go into that. We'll go into that afterwards. We'll get to the Hornets real quick.
Okay, yeah. So the Hornets, yeah, I'm intrigued. I mean, they're a solid young, frisky bunch. Terry Rozier isn't as bad. I mean, he's again not a very efficient shooter by any means, but he had some nice moments. He got Michael Jordan off his seat last night, fist pumping a little. Devontae Graham was a walking bucket. I mean, that guy was just a flamethrower from three. And then PJ Washington for a rookie. I mean, that guy was really active, flexed about every other dunk or layup he had, he was flexing, running down the court.
He did have some monster dunk though.
He did have some monster dunks, but he was fun to watch. I think Bridges is a nice young piece. And then aside from that, I mean, a weird too last night. I just want to say, Biyombo played his first minutes of the entire NBA season in like the final 8 minutes. And had like some of the huge impact moments. It's like where the
felt like he had 100 rebounds.
Yeah, I was like, God damn, they didn't play you all year, and you've been just waiting. It's just goddamn Rudy moment. But yeah, no, I think they're a scrappy bunch. I don't think they're going to be as bad as we predicted because they're shooting a lot of threes. They're going with the analytic system of if you shoot a lot of threes, you're probably going to be in basketball games. And as of right now, they're just hitting threes. I think they're one of the better teams actually from 3-point percentage wise in the NBA actually.
They do have some fun players like you mentioned, Miles Bridges, PJ Washington, Devontae Graham, like guys that can throw down or score buckets for you. And Hey, like if someone told me like the Hornets didn't get their fourth win until December, I wouldn't have been surprised. To have 4 wins at this point and be 4-3 is pretty impressive. Obviously, they haven't beaten any amazing teams. The Pacers were still shorthanded last night. I think some of the wins have come against like the Bulls. I want to say maybe the Cavs or the Knicks. So, like, they're definitely more competitive, but I don't think it's going to be a great season. But 3 game winning streak, you got to be happy. It might be the only one of the season.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, they're actually, I looked it up. They're shooting 37% from three as a team. That's the eighth best in the NBA. Also, they only shoot. Oh, They're second in the league in 17 free throw attempts a game now, but that's a little bit bolstered because of last night.
Yeah,
So
it was very big free throw differential. It was like only the seventh time it happened in NBA history.
yeah, seventh time in NBA history that a team has been out free throwed by like 35 or more attempts.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy, and like a lot of that came from Biombo, but still, like I was amazed when you tweeted out that stat. But just touching on Miami and Denver, I don't know if you got a chance to watch the game, but did you have any thoughts in what happened? Like, why did Miami get blown out, or are they just tired of their first big West Coast game of the season? Well, not even full West Coast, but you know what I mean.
We see the holes of not having a definitive scorer on the team.
That's what I was thinking too. I think they just couldn't match the offensive firepower of Denver. And even though, like, I think their defense wasn't as good as normal last night, I think even when you play good defense, this is something we talk about a lot. Good offense is going to beat good defense most nights.
Yeah, and it seems like Kendrick Nunn has hit his first like little slump of the year.
People know
He's
who he is.
exactly right. So he had 5 points last game, or before 5 points, and then last night he had 11 points. So he's on a little bit of a drought. Was 2 for 8, and like you said, people now know to look for him. And then Duncan Robinson, he's been shooting like 50% from the field for them. He had a bad night shooting. Again, without having a definitive scorer on this team, you're relying on some young guys. Tyler Harrow, Duncan Robinson, Kendrick Nunn. You're relying on young guys to be majority of your offense because Justice Winslow, even though he's point Winslow going forward and is going to be a very good defender, you can't rely on him for offense. So if those young guys aren't scoring, and then Jimmy Butler has to be given a bigger task of scoring, which we saw last night, he was 3 for 12. That's when they're in trouble. Jimmy Butler kind of being the backup scoring option and kind of picking his moments to pick apart an offense while he just plays really good defense. That's where he kind of thrives. And the fact of the matter is, if you don't have someone who can flat out get you a bucket, or you have these young guys having a shaky night, the offense isn't going to come for this team. Like Goran Dragic off the bench can give you a little bit, but that's where this team is going to struggle, is when those young guys aren't hitting shots, because you can't rely on Jimmy Butler for a ton of offense. Obviously, I think he's going to be better than 3 and 12 on most nights. But again, that's what I noticed was a scoring punch for sure.
Yeah, and you hit it pretty much on the head. Young players are going to be inconsistent, and when that's a majority of your offense, you're going to have nights where you're going to drought. And in the East, you might be able to get a win that night, but going against a team like Denver, it's just not going to happen. And just to give a quick note of Jimmy Butler's early numbers, 4 games in, he's 3-1, 15 points per game, 35% from the field, 23% from three, 7 rebounds though, and 6.5 assists on 3 turnovers and almost 4 steals.
Yeah, I mean he's doing a little bit of everything. The shooting numbers, that's just like, do I think James Harden's going to be as bad throughout this season too? No. Do I think Jimmy Butler will be this bad throughout the most of the season? No, I don't. They're just in a little bit of a shooting slump to start off the year. I'm not too worried about that. I love the stat line though of Jimmy following the shooting numbers though. Like I love the rebounds, the assists, the steals. I've said this last week or so. I think this is the best system for Jimmy Butler, the best situation he's been in, because he's playing the perfect Jimmy Butler role. It's just the fact of the matter is he's just not a number one scoring option for a team. That's just not what he thrives at, and that's going to be an issue.
Yeah, and the only way he really could be a number one scoring option is if the other components are very good and he's surrounded by a whole bunch of 2-3 options. So it's like
Right.
everybody is a threat.
And
But
again, I want to say just a touch on it. Still Jokic is into like a weird funk to start this year. Like I know he was slightly better last night, was in foul trouble though, but I have not been impressed with him at all to start this season. Like he just looks. I know that, I had this little segment we're gonna do where I'm gonna say some like believe it or not things, but he just hasn't been good this year, and I don't know if it's just like early season woes, but like he's not even taking a lot of shot attempts. I know he took 12 last night, but for a lot of these games, he's kind of just like out there not doing much. I'm just a little bit lost on what's happening to Jokic.
Yeah, some people have mentioned conditioning, him not really having a great summer workouts being a thing, but obviously he's never really been in amazing condition in terms of the NBA. And you mentioned 12 shot attempts. That's what he's averaging on the season. You'd like to see him get some more shots up, just under 6 assists. The Nuggets are 5-2, so it's not a huge deal, but you'd like to see him get going. I would kind of expect him almost to play himself into shape by the end of November.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's got to be the expectation, especially because he looked like really in really good shape for Serbia. Like it looked like he was, or I think he played for Serbia.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Right, but either way, he looked like he was in shape to slim down, and he came in a kid. And I remember everyone like taking the photo of him and like zooming in and being like, "Yo, what happened?"
Maybe he just like went straight to it. People say he like walks around the Denver facility with like candy.
I mean, enjoy your life, but I mean, it's time to ball.
Yeah, I mean, at least play yourself in the good shape by the time the playoffs start. But I'm gonna pass it over to you.
Yeah, so this is like I don't even know really how to go about this game, but basically I just saw some stats and I'm just gonna like tell you the stats basically, and it's gonna be like a believe it or not, and you're gonna like tell me I guess if it's gonna remain like this or if it's gonna change.
Got it.
Yeah, that's the best I got. Okay.
Essentially, do I believe in this stat or do I think it's just a small sample size?
Right. Yes. Okay. So first up, James Harden is shooting more free throws. It has more free throw attempts per game than 3 NBA teams: the Orlando Magic, Sacramento Kings, and New Orleans Pelicans at 15.2 free throw attempts a game. Believe it or not.
I don't believe it. I think those teams will probably get up and James Harden will probably go down. I would assume. Would I be completely surprised? No, but I want to say that those teams should hopefully outproduce him.
Yeah, I would feel the same way. I think the 15.2 is a little bit inflated because he's been just like getting to the line a ridiculous amount to start this season. So I would think that number is going to go down.
But I almost want to like check last year and see if he did do it for the entire season. I wouldn't be completely surprised.
I would feel like he had last year probably at least 12 a game, if I had to guess.
Let's take a quick look.
11. Okay,
11.
Close. He's averaging 16, so he's actually gone up since I had this stat. It was 15.2. Did they play last night?
They did not.
So it was. Oh, I got the stat Monday, so that makes sense.
Right. Okay, yeah, and he did not outproduce anybody last year. The lowest free throw attempts per game last year were the Sacramento Kings at 16.
Okay, all right. So right now he'd be beating that team. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's good. Not believe. All right. So next, defenders. You might have already seen this stat. Defenders are shooting 77% in the paint when guarded by Nikola Jokic. Believe it or not.
I'm gonna say not. I think we just mentioned he's not playing well, and like to shoot 70% against almost a 7-footer is pretty hard to do. I think guys are just hitting shots early on, and they'll probably miss more as the season progresses. It'll get closer to the mean. Like 70% is really high.
Yeah, I know the other day it was like 80% too, so it's already dipped slightly, because he did solid against Miami last night.
And Denver's has other good defenders that could help him even if he doesn't play much better.
Right, exactly. So this one's interesting. Anthony Davis and LeBron James both have the lowest true shooting percentages of their careers to date. Believe it or not. And the Lakers are 6-1.
That's really interesting. And I feel like LeBron might have his worst true shooting percentage of his career, but I think AD won't. I think LeBron might have to just score a lot from the perimeter and take more shots and maybe not hit a great clip, and he could possibly have it, but I think AD should pick up his numbers.
And actually, LeBron's numbers have gone slightly up from last night's performance against the Bulls, where he was really good, obviously.
Yeah, so I would say actually I don't believe it for either guy. I think playing with each other and then the other components on the Lakers will be better. Kyle Kuzma coming back should give the offense a little bit of a boost.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. And also, like, 7 games in, to have like that number in particular be low isn't like crazy to think. Like these kind of things happen, as we mentioned with some guy like James Harden and Jimmy Butler having shooting woes early. It's not something that you can normally normally stick.
Exactly. We haven't even seen a month of basketball.
Okay, so this one's fun. And this is the last one I have. So Dwight Howard, obviously Another Laker one. Dwight Howard has been fantastic this season off the bench for the Lakers. He has his highest block total since 2012-2013, a career high box plus minus, a career best offensive rating, and a career best defensive rating so far of his career, currently with the Lakers off the bench, believe it or not.
I'm not going to believe it. Dwight has been amazing, but like Dwight has some incredible numbers throughout his career. Like at one time, Dwight was a top 5 player in the NBA. I don't think he'll get back to that, but I do think he'll put up great numbers. And I've been super impressed with his adjustment to playing, more of a complementary center than, the main guy.
Yeah. I'm going to believe the defensive rating part. Because from what I've seen early on, I do think he can be like a defensive anchor for this team because he just looks limber. Like the possession last night against Kobe White, when Kobe White tried to ISO him and he blew by him, but Dwight was able to recover. And still wasn't easy for Kobe White to get by Dwight Howard in the first place, but was able to recover and block his shot. So I think defensive rating wise, I think he could stick to around this number, especially if he's only playing 20 minutes per game.
And if the Lakers bench plays really good defense, it could help his case.
Yes,
but
precisely.
It'll be interesting. I mean, like, I'm not going to lie. Like, I've wanted to tweet this out, like, every night I've watched Dwight. He's been, like, really good. He looks just a lot more agile. He definitely looks a lot leaner.
Yeah. And, I mean, he's got a good mentality, so hopefully that stays out. But that's all I got for Believe It or Not.
All right. I like that.
No, one more. Because I don't know the exact stat, but it just came to my head, and I can't miss an opportunity to talk about the Pacers. LeBron James has the most points and assists of anyone in the NBA. Malcolm Brogdon is second behind him in both points and assists. Those two guys lead the league in points and assists, believe it or not.
I'm not going to believe it. Malcolm Brogdon has been amazing, but I think if they were to keep Brogdon at this workload, it would not be efficient. Like, he definitely would wear down, especially throughout the season. Then also, obviously, no Turner. Sabonis is coming back tonight, I believe. And then we're going to see Oladipo at some point. But I think maybe for like the next few weeks, it could kind of maintain at that level and not to take anything away from Brogdon, who's looked like an all-star this season.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And also kind of seen it over the last couple of games with Brogdon. With the really high usage rate, his turnovers have doubled. He's now averaging like 3 or 4 turnovers a game, whereas the first couple of games he was averaging 0 or 1. So I think the workload is definitely something to watch, especially I want to just give you the number. He's got a 27.8% usage rate, which isn't like crazy high, but for a guy whose career high was 20.7, he's now, 7 points higher on being used. And obviously with the Pacers, with all the injuries, they've been asking him to do a lot more. So I would imagine this to slightly dip.
Yeah, I agree. But I don't think it'll dip too much because I want to say Karis LeVert and like Spencer Dinwiddie both hover around like 26 to 28% usage. So I think it's a good spot to keep him out. Maybe it's just kind of limiting his minutes and making his life easier because I think a lot of the time when he's out there doing his thing, it's really just like purely Malcolm Brogdon doing something, and he's creating stuff for everyone and for himself.
Yeah, I mean, prime example, the Pacers game has started now. They're 6 minutes in, and he already has 4 points, 3 assists.
Yeah, so that's
they need him to do so much, as you mentioned.
Well, I'll let you go because I know you want to watch that game. As always, big thanks to everybody for checking us out, and you can find us on iTunes, otgbasketball.com, Google Play, Dash Radio, and YouTube.
Peace out, knuckleheads.